The rain began to fall steadily as I walked home, my jacket doing little to shield me from the damp chill of the night. The streets were nearly empty, the city's usual hum muffled by the persistent sound of raindrops hitting pavement. It had been a long day at work, one of those days where exhaustion clung to every thought, making every step feel heavier than the last. I turned down a quieter alleyway, a shortcut I often used to shave a few minutes off my commute. The alley was narrow, flanked by tall, aged buildings with crumbling bricks and broken windows. The glow of a single street lamp at the far end cast a dim light, barely cutting through the thick, misty rain. As I walked, my footsteps echoed eerily, each one bouncing off the wet walls surrounding me. About halfway through, I thought I heard another set of footsteps, faint but distinct behind me. I stopped, the sound vanishing instantly, leaving only the steady rhythm of rain dripping from gutters. My heart quickened, a chill running down my spine as I glanced back nervously. The alley was empty, or at least it appeared to be, under the dim light. I shook my head, dismissing it as paranoia, fueled by the isolation and eerie atmosphere of the alley. Continuing forward, the footsteps returned, louder this time, keeping perfect pace with my own. I stopped again, and this time, the sound didn't immediately cease, a slight delay, unsettling. Turning sharply, I called out, "Who's there?" My voice sounded weak, barely audible over the relentless rain, cascading from above. There was no answer, only the oppressive silence that seemed to grow heavier with each passing second. I resumed walking, faster now, my pulse racing as fear began to creep into my thoughts. The footsteps grew louder, closer, as though whoever was behind me had no intention of hiding. My mind raced through possibilities. Was it a prank, a mugger, or something far worse, waiting for its moment? The street lamp at the end of the alley felt like a beacon, a lifeline pulling me towards safety, away from the darkness. I broke into a jog, then a run, my breath fogging the air as I dashed toward the light. Reaching the end, I turned sharply onto the main road, relieved to see a few cars passing in the distance. I glanced back once more, expecting to see someone emerge from the shadows, but the alley remained empty. The relief was short-lived as I noticed something glinting in the light, a faint reflection that disappeared in the blink of an eye. Shaking, I hurried home, convinced I was safe now that the alley was far behind. That night, I locked every door and window, double-checking each one as the rain continued to pour outside. Lying in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as though unseen eyes lingered nearby. The sound of rain against the glass was almost comforting, masking the unsettling quiet of the night. Then I heard it, the faint sound of footsteps on the pavement, outside my window. My heart sank as I sat up, listening intently to the rhythmic tap of shoes against wet stone. Peering out through a crack in the curtains, I saw nothing but rain-soaked streets, shimmering under the streetlights. I returned to bed, convinced I was imagining things, my exhaustion playing tricks on my overwrought mind. But as soon as I closed my eyes, the footsteps began again, louder this time, circling the house. Fear gripped me, every nerve on edge as I crept toward the window once more. This time, a shadow moved across the far edge of the street, its figure obscured by the heavy rain and poor lighting. It lingered for a moment before disappearing around the corner, as though teasing my fragile sense of safety. I stayed awake the rest of the night, the faint sound of footsteps returning intermittently, until dawn. The next day, I was jumpy, unable to focus on anything but the events of the night before. My coworkers noticed my distracted state, but I brushed it off, claiming I hadn't slept well. On my way home that evening, I avoided the alley entirely, choosing a longer but busier route through the city. Yet as I neared my street, I saw a figure standing beneath a flickering street lamp, its face obscured by shadow and rain. It turned slightly, and I felt a chill run through me as I recognized the same faint glint in its hand. I hurried inside, locking the door behind me and checking the windows once more. The following nights were worse, the footsteps returning each time I thought I was alone. They followed me no matter where I went, always keeping their distance, yet never relenting. My phone buzzed constantly with unknown numbers, silent calls that only deepened my growing paranoia. One night, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. Armed with a flashlight and kitchen knife, I waited by the front door, determined to confront my tormentor. Hours passed as the rain continued to fall, its rhythmic patter providing a grim backdrop to my dread. Then, just after midnight, the footsteps returned, louder than ever, directly outside my door. My hand trembled as I gripped the knife, the flashlight beam unsteady as I flung the door open into the night. The street was empty, save for the rain-soaked pavement glistening under the dim streetlights. A flash of movement caught my eye, a figure disappearing into the alley at the end of the road. Fueled by equal parts fear and anger, I chased after it, determined to end this relentless nightmare. The alley was even darker than before, the single street lamp flickering weakly, as though struggling against the oppressive gloom. As I entered, the footsteps stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to swallow all sound. The figure stood at the far end, motionless, its back to me, as though waiting for me to make a move. My flashlight flickered and died, plunging me into near darkness, save for the faint glow of the street lamp. I called out, demanding to know who they were and what they wanted, my voice echoing in the empty space. The figure didn't respond, but slowly turned, its face obscured by shadow, its hand glinting faintly. Before I could react, it took a step forward, and I realized with mounting terror that it wasn't alone. Figures emerged from the shadows, their faces blank and hollow, their movements synchronized as they closed in. I stumbled backward, the knife slipping from my grasp as panic overtook every rational thought. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned and ran, the sound of their footsteps echoing relentlessly behind me. I burst onto the main road, the rain blinding me as I sprinted toward the nearest source of light. The figures didn't follow, stopping at the edge of the alley, their silhouettes fading back into the darkness. To this day, I don't know who or what they were, or why they chose me to torment. The alley remains a place of nightmares, a grim reminder of the terror that lurks in the quiet shadows.